I thought I'd record a video today about why I think AI transformations aren't working out for companies and what you might want to think about if you're a leader or business owner and wondering what all this hype is about and why you're trying out AI projects and nothing's really working. So for context, I spent 12 years in project delivery in financial services, most recently as a project manager. So I've seen projects work well, projects work not so well. I've also completed all my program, project and change management certifications. So in the traditional sense, I've got quite a bit of experience in delivering projects and doing that in complex regulated environments. One of the things that's really interesting about AI as a technology is it enables you to do things better, faster, and cheaper. And one of the things I've noticed with a lot of leaders is that one of the things that's most appealing is the cheaper part. So over the last few decades, there's been an enormous trend to offshore or outsource as much as you can, particularly in big corporations. They talk about this concept of having onshore locations and offshore locations and getting that blend of cost between people paid high wages in Sydney or New York or somewhere else that's a high cost of living city, and then balancing that with a lower cost of labour in somewhere like Poland or India or the Philippines. Now, one of the first things that comes to mind when you think about AI is, well, if AI agents and AI models are going to do more and more of the work, what happens over time to those offshore centres? And that's something I might talk about in a different video based on my own experience of interacting with offshore centres of excellence. But what it means for business owners wanting to deliver projects is they now have kind of like a new country. It's called AI. There's different factions inside this country, and instead of setting up an offshoring centre in the Philippines or India, you can set up an AI factory that is helping you solve problems in your business, but at much lower cost than needing to go find an office and set people up and manage all of that overhead and process around managing an offshored. So this is a mental model which I think should be used more, but I haven't seen too much of it. There are some of the top AI people who've spoken about AI giving you like a continent with 1 billion in population and everyone's got a genius IQ. Now, I think that's maybe a little bit over-egged. There are still a lot of challenges in working with AI. You need to make sure that you're using the right context. You need to make sure that data is clean and correct and well controlled. You need to make sure that all of the policies around cybersecurity and governance and all of the legal and regulatory obligations in your country are getting met. You can't just give an AI agent a task and get it done. You still need some structure around how you do things. And this is why I think one problem is if you haven't used AI tools yourself, it's really hard to frame up a transformation program. If you're a software developer and you've been experimenting with agentic coding tools like Claude Code and ChatGPT Codex or Google's new anti-gravity, then you can see how for a lot of simple to medium complexity tasks, it really is better now for you to be using AI. It's lower cost. Yes, there might be some slop and complexity that you need to manually review, but this trend is pretty much irreversible. And the reason is business owners don't care about how you get to the business outcome. They are indifferent between hiring 100 developers or spending $10 million on Anthropic API credits to have a couple of developers just use Claude Code for absolutely everything. And this is apparently already coming through into startup funding rounds where team sizes are smaller and a lot of the spend, which previously might have been on cloud and salaries and RSUs and all that sort of compensation for people, is being reallocated towards spend on AI agentic coding tools. Now, this is good for the economics of AI, but for the normal, ordinary business owner who isn't building their own complex software, there's still this bridge around, well, how do I get from knowing that AI can solve problems and connecting an AI tool to my workflow, my data, and to enable me to help my customers. What's effectively stopping a lot of these AI programs getting off the ground is fear. And a lot of people, as soon as they see the headlines of, X is making 10,000 redundancies, Amazon's laying off people, all these other big companies in tech are laying off people, it's all the fault of AI. Well, I think that's a partial explanation. Some of these job losses could be because of AI. I think that's reasonable. You can also see trends of less interest in hiring junior or graduate software developers, for example. This is going to spread as AI model capability gets better into other areas. So take something like audit and Big Four consulting. Over time, given how prescriptive and prone to automation a lot of the subtasks are in that field, it's likely that overall numbers of people working in audit functions is going to drop and much more automation is going to be required. Now, that'll take time, but that's coming for every single knowledge work category. So one thing that you might want to think about is, if I've got a business problem and today I solve it by hiring people, and over time I train them up, I invest in them, they learn on the job, they get experience doing lots of other things, and then 5 years of experience, they're really valuable, and that's when they jump ship and go to other companies to get salary raises or more career opportunities. So if you think about that in terms of a talent development approach, AI transformation gives you quite a problem, because as AI models get better, the errors, the bugs, the things that aren't working when you're trying to automate a process with AI agents, they're probably going to be solved by the people with 10, 15, 20 years industry experience. The really experienced experts who can sit in front of a whiteboard and draw a detailed diagram of how your entire business or entire function hangs together, they're best placed to have the context to help the AI agents get the right outcome. And what you might find is, when you go down the cost cutting because of AI route too fast, you lose a lot of that institutional knowledge. And you also open up another strategic risk, which I think a lot of leaders haven't really thought through, and that's that for some businesses to put together a product and service that customers will pay for in a small startup environment that still meets all the quality and regulatory requirements is much easier today than it was even 2 years ago. So a small, tiny team of a handful of industry experts could put together an operating model, the people, the processes, the platforms, that is challenging your business and its own products and services and able to deliver at a much faster pace. So, for example, there have been a lot of FinTech startups over the last few decades. Some have done well, some have not done so well. A lot of them have had a lot of regulatory challenges, regulatory scandals. Some have quite substantial gaps in product functionality between what you get from a proper bank and what you get from a FinTech. Now, that gap, because these FinTechs are going to be using more and more AI, is going to get closer and closer to the point where not only will there be, say, the generation of FinTechs, but that next generation will be AI first in how they think about everything. So instead of taking the process for how they made lending decisions or how they structured payments, they will redesign everything from scratch. Inside the regulatory boundaries, of course, but a lot of these AI first companies, they're not going to be burdened by how we've done things or what the rules are or what the standard way of doing things are. And we're already starting to see this with the benchmark tests that some of these AI models come up with. So over time, benchmarks that human experts thought were really hard are getting knocked out of the park and passed by these AI models. In the last few weeks, each of the major labs has released a new model. So there's been Claude Opus 4.5, there's been Gemini Pro 3, there's been ChatGPT 5.1 Pro, and there's been XAI Grok 4.1. Now, all of these models are solving problems that are much more complex than a typical business faces in selling a widget to a customer and making sure that it gets from order to payment and everything works nicely. If the problems in your business are simpler than IMO Math Olympiad problems, you already face AI disruption risk. And this is something which, since quitting my job in February, working with select clients on AI transformation and writing my Substack about AI transformation, I've really been shocked at how many people don't want to join the dots between AI model gets better, I do some AI pilots, maybe they don't work because there's change resistance and people don't want to lose knowledge, so the venture we tried didn't work out, and that means that for my business, AI is just not going to work. It's too hard, too complex. That isn't the situation. What's actually happening there, and this is something which I'm looking to help select clients with, is the people in the business are scared. They have fear, and a lot of it's justifiable because if you think back over the last few decades, a lot of corporations haven't really earned trust and maintained trust with the community, with their workers, with their regulators, with their stakeholders. So when you start talking about AI can save us this, and you tell investors, oh, we'll cut X thousand jobs, we'll do that, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, because what you need is specialists and experts to help you nudge that last mile of what the gap between an AI tool and an expert human can do. And there's still a need for people. So one thing I want to sort of reiterate is AI can do a lot, but that taste, curation, niche-specific knowledge that isn't in the AI training data and personal lived experience is stuff that is very valuable, especially when you're thinking about doing an AI transformation. Because someone needs to start writing the first prompt. Someone needs to assess if what's coming back out of the tools is working for the business or not working for the business. And all of these things require judgment and expertise. And this is where my take is that AI transformation, in the end, is really about people. And if you've focused on people and invested in people in a genuine way, not in a lip service, here's your benefits PDF type way, then you've got a much higher chance of getting an AI project across the line, because your best people are already experimenting with all these AI tools on their own time, with their own money, because they can see the leverage that it gives great people. It helps them do things better, faster, and cheaper. And if they're coming back into a work environment where, for good reasons, there might be very severe restrictions on what data can be accessed, what tools can be used, maybe you're stuck using Copilot or something like that, they are going to find themselves very frustrated. And what you really want to be doing is taking a step back and finding small use cases that you can take from pain for a frontline worker to solution using AI deployed in a production environment that is helping you do things better, faster, and cheaper, freeing people up. One of the biggest risks, and I just keep seeing this all the time in corporate announcements around AI, is boards and executive teams many of them have figured this out, but they've jumped straight to the realized benefits piece, where they're like, oh cool, so we have 1,000 people in customer support, we roll this AI tool out, we can cut the size of that team down to 100, we save 900 people. That is short-term thinking, and my take is that yes, it is perfectly legitimate to think that way, but a much more staggered approach is going to be needed, because there are still a lot of lessons to pick up during these transformations, and expertise is actually much more valuable than people want to let on. So if you're interested in talking more or learning more from me about this sort of stuff, drop a comment, let me know. I'm interested in what you think about this more Yap style long video. I've ranted a bit, but this is something I'm very interested in. And basically, since I left my corporate job at the start of the year, most of my personal time has been experimenting with AI, researching with AI, working with select clients and publishing my articles. And also I've been working on side projects where I'm using these AI coding tools and getting some really interesting results and learning a lot. So let me know what you think, drop a comment below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.